a Midnight Waffles podcast.
This is BattleStations, a podcast about the Columbus Destroyers and the Arena Football League. I'm Frank Walker. Thanks again for listening to the podcast, folks. Again, this BattleStations in conjunction with AFLFanzone.com. It's been another rough week for the Destroyers. This is this is a tune that is hard to break at this point. This week's game was, so the Valor game was frustrating in a whole world of ways that this game was not. I will compare it to being a hockey fan, in that if you watch hockey, you'll occasionally get to a game where your team goes down 3 or 4 goals real early, and your goalie just having a bad night, something's not right, so you pull the goalie, you put in the backup, and the rest of the night just looks like guys going through the motions. It just kind of wraps up, and those are never fun games to watch. Normally those are the kind of games where I'll kind of move it to a smaller screen. I might have with me like a laptop or something and start doing something else a little bit, but it's just not great. And that's what this game kind of felt like after halftime. Even though the Destroyers were kind of fighting again in the fourth quarter, it was a game where, because at halftime it was relatively close. 19-14, you have a chance. But then third quarter, Philadelphia scores 14 unanswered points. Third quarter, that happened. Fourth quarter, Columbus scores 21, Philadelphia scores 14, but you lose 47-35. It's just, you hit a certain point in the game where everybody just kind of knows it's over. And more so than most of the games this season, because most of the games there was always a feeling of, okay, if we can get something to go right here, we can pull in and make this happen. This game after the third quarter was just kind of okay, let's just get to the end of this thing. In that way, is one of the more demoralizing games for the team this year, because it's so far this season there has been this awful drumbeat where, for the most part, you kind of felt like they were in games. The first week against the Empire, Week 2 against Atlantic City, they lost 42-35. That's 1 touchdown. Week 3 against Baltimore, it was 48-30. I think that game actually was the one that was a little closer than it felt. That home loss to the Empire, 56-40, that's another game that felt closer than it was as the game was happening, but Baltimore scored late, and that was, it was just it. That Valor game, man, that was a rough game. Because that was a game that you should have had, especially now with being 0-6. I get that 1-5 is not a lot better, but at least it gets something in that win column. So it's been a rough go. I will say something I'm starting to see a little bit more of is that I'm starting to see more and more people questioning Grant Russell as the quarterback for this team. And I can understand it, especially with the team being 0-6. That's understandable to me, that you would start to question that. I will say, in his defense, his completion percentages are staying decently solid in comparison to other Arena Football League quarterbacks. And I do apologize, just taking a quick second here, pulling up the exact stats on that. But in some ways, he's staying very close with what other quarterbacks are doing in the league here. All right, so looking at his stats for the season. Grant Russell, he's 102 completions from 156 attempts, a 65.4% completion rate. So it's not great. Shane Boyd's at a 66. That's the next one. Of weekly starters, his is higher than Arvell Nelson's, who's at 57.1. Where Grant Russell is struggling is the interceptions. He's got 18 touchdowns, which is the lowest of any of the starting quarterbacks in the league, and the most interceptions at 7. His quarterback rating is actually higher than Arvell Nelson's, which is a little bit of a surprise to me, but Arvell Nelson also makes plays with his feet a little bit. But it's growing pains. I don't think that he's being I don't think it's something like he's out there and he's exposed and he looks bad and it looks like, oh no, we shouldn't have him on the team or anything like that. It's something where you see him growing. I have a little bit of this in my discussion with Coach Sauk later, but if you go back and listen to the previous episodes, we normally ask at least one question about Grant Russell every week, and a lot of weeks he's doing pretty well. And a lot of weeks when the game's over, I go back and look. Now, with the Washington Valor game, the pick that was right at the beginning of the half that turned into a touchdown, that was real bad. This game, I don't know. I don't put as much on him as much as on just a lot of things going on around him. That 7 interception number is real high, considering the next closest are Randy Hippert and Narvell Nelson at 5 each. But it's something. The big issue is we have 18 touchdowns when the next closest guy's at 22, and then Tommy Grady, who the Empire look like they're just rolling again this year, has got 35. So it's, I don't know. It's one of those things where you kind of gotta figure out where. I don't know. It's the same issue you have. It takes me back in a lot of ways to, and this is a terrible thing to have to compare to because of how bad things went later, but it takes me back to that first year watching the Cleveland Browns come back, where there were so many games before they got that first win where it was like, oh, they just, if this or if that had happened differently, maybe the game turns out differently. And so far, that's where we're at, guys. We're waiting to see where that happens. I did appreciate in this week, saw a few different things, a few different wrinkles. Like in the last couple of weeks, we started seeing some more wrinkles as far as rushing attempts, screen passes, different things like that, passes to that eligible receiver who's on the line, the tight end there. So there's some things that I think are going well. It's another week where 47's a little higher this week as far as what the defense goes in comparison to arena football games, but I don't think the defense is the issue. It's still that offense coming along. It's still getting points when we can get them. So let me get to our conversation this week with Coach Sauk, and I'll be right back with you. Welcome to the BattleStations podcast. Columbus Destroyers head coach Matt Sauk. How are you doing this evening, Coach?
Doing well.
All right, good to hear. And with the nice weather coming around and Memorial Day weekend having just passed, were you able to do any cookouts or anything fun with the holiday at all, or just work?
Just work. Just trying to turn this losing streak around and trying to get us a win.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that feeling. So, speaking of, obviously that's kind of what we're going to have to be talking about here tonight. So far in this season, if coming into training camp, coming into when you were hired and everything, as someone talked about the team being 0-6 halfway into the season, what would have been your response to that? How is this? Obviously it hasn't gone according to expectations, but what would your perspective on that have been?
Obviously I was hoping for better than that. But at this point in the season, it is what it is, and you just kind of have to live with it. In reality, with a young team that I knew that we would have, you're hoping for 3-3. And we just haven't been able to, pull it out and get those wins. So, yeah, obviously it's disappointing where we're at. But, the good thing is we got 6 games left. So, I guess I believe in miracles. I believe in this team. I think that we can kind of pull it together. I'm sure a lot of people are not, basically doubting us. But, at the end of the day, we just got to get the first, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Is that a kind of a tactic you use with the team at all? At this point, is it kind of a motivational idea with them as well in terms of, kind of playing that us against the world card, or is it still just, business style week in, week out? How do you come across, or how do you present that, especially with the team?
As coaching staff, we just try to stay consistent. We believe in what we're doing, and at the end of the day, when you look at what we're doing, the scheme is there to win. We're just mentally not getting it done. And the great thing about film is it's basically black and white. You either did your job or you didn't. And you watch film and we're just kind of failing at the wrong times. And it's just one of those things where I think we're a young team and we still haven't kind of found that rhythm that we need. But yeah, it obviously it's frustrating But the coaching staff's going to continue to do what we're doing. We're going to put in the same amount of hours that we're putting in. We're going to keep on teaching the way we teach because we believe in it. And at some point, like I said, we will turn this thing around, and hopefully it starts this week.
All right. And from your perspective, is there anything that, going back from the beginning of the season, you're thinking, maybe I would have handled this a little differently, or maybe we would have approached this situation differently? Is there anything like that in your mind?
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, I probably would have signed probably a couple more veterans on offense. But like I said, I mean, I had a chance to sign guys. I gave out contracts to veterans, and they chose to go elsewhere because they were offered more money. So there's nothing you can really do at that point. So you're kind of at where you're at. And like I said, I'm happy with the team that we have. I just wish that we could, stop the errors, the turnovers, the misalignments and all that stuff. And I think once we do, we'll eventually get that win.
I can understand the perspective on that, as far as maybe not a whole lot else. And there are some things going on. Like coming into this season, when we were talking about it on the show beforehand, there was a lot of idea on, Donovan Morgan's presence on the field being a help, not just in what he would be able to do, but that he frees up other guys to do things. And I mean, obviously an injury like that, something you can't really plan for there at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, he was a guy that I kind of was going to lean on to be here with, with us and kind of teach. And the bad part about it is he hasn't been on the field yet. And, as of right now, I got 10 out of 12 guys on offense are rookies. Before I got Paul Browning, it was 11 out of 12. So it's a struggle that, these guys have never played the game before, and they're still learning. But, like I said, you can only use that excuse for so long. I mean, right now we're, 6 weeks into the season. And when you count camp, you got 8 weeks. So eventually they got to start learning and not making those mistakes. So we're just going to try to, keep the guys that we have because we believe in them, keep that continuity going together with the quarterback, and try to obviously, as I said, get a win.
All right. Now, the last 2 weeks, the teams really seemed to struggle coming out at a halftime. I mean, in the Valor game, it was a game that you guys seemed to have kind of in control on what was going on. And then this last week, it was a game where you had to do some comeback, but Philadelphia really, I think they scored 14 in the third quarter, and I don't think Columbus put up anything on those. What is that process going in and trying to make those halftime adjustments, or are there changes in how you're thinking of doing that, or what's your evaluation of that?
Well, I mean, my speech with the guys this morning was pretty simple. It was the fact that, 2 out of the first 3 drives we had a major amount of penalties. We had 2 interceptions out of 3 drives, 1 for a touchdown. We came out in the second half. They score on a 4th and 10 because we had misalignment on defense, and then offensively we drive down. We get, I think, at the 10-yard line-ish. We throw a pass and we fumble it. So, it's one of those things where it's like we just keep on killing ourselves because, at the end of the half we stopped them. So you're down 19-14, 4th and 10. If we align properly, I have no doubt that we're going to stop them because we were doing a good job of doing that. So now, we get the ball back, and again, it's all, if and could or whatever. But I mean, again, you just look at it, and the way you talk about it is we get the stop, we score, and now we're up 21-19, and it's a completely different ball game. But we let them score. We fumble on our first drive. They score, and now it's like it's a 14-point swing that to their way instead of our way. So it's just one of those things where it's just really frustrating, and it's just the things that we got to clean up.
Now, this week, something I did notice when I was watching the game. I know Grant Russell had a couple of picks this week, but one thing I kind of noticed on the first one he had, at least, and I don't remember if it was true on the second, but it came on a 4th down. And I remember after the conversations we've had being like, well, if it had to happen sometime, I mean, this is when you have to kind of force the issue and see what happens. Are you still seeing kind of that progression for him week to week and how he's doing and how he's grown as quarterback of this team?
Yeah, I mean, the first fourth down in that first drive, we ran a dig and the wide receiver, started his dig and then went above the DB, which you can't do. So Grant's thinking he's going to run below him. The wide receiver goes above him, and next thing you know, it's a pick for an INT. The second interception that he had, we had a misalignment on with the wide receivers. And we were late with the ball. I mean, for 3 steps, I had a wide receiver that was, wide open. So, it's just a learning tool for Grant. And, the way we talk about it is, it's frustrating. I mean, you can go back to NFL, to college. I mean, there's not a lot of times when a first-year player comes in and just puts up unbelievable stats. You look at, I use the example of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning in his rookie year threw 28 interceptions. So it's not like he started out just unbelievable. I think everyone saw the talent, which is what we see with Grant. And my goal is to try to give him situations to where he can be a little bit more successful and not have those interceptions. So that is my goal going forward, is to kind of cut down on that. I will try to do that with play calling. But at the end of the day, he's also got to keep on progressing as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight, Coach. I know that as the weeks have progressed here, these questions have not been getting easier, but I do thank you for coming on and giving us a chance to ask them here.
No, I appreciate you having me. I really do.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Take care.
All right. And as always, we are appreciative of Coach Sauk being on the show with us this week. If you're a normal listener to the show, you'll notice we're a little bit different in format this week and that we don't have a second guest discussing Atlantic City. Just something where life got busy for me, so I wasn't able to get anybody hooked up or set up for the show. My fault on that. I do apologize. We'll be back to the normal format for next week. A couple other things before we finish up here. This last week, there was a game, the Baltimore Atlantic City game, ended on a last-second field goal. Really exciting game. The problem was a lot of people didn't get to see it. There's apparently an outage with the stream on Saturday, so it did not go through. There's a lot of upsetness about this, which makes a lot of sense. With the league growing, which it is, and where I'm happy to say that is, it being on ESPN is helping. I think that the situation with pushing more into the daily fantasy is helping a lot and getting people really into the games that wouldn't have been otherwise. So what I do appreciate is that Commissioner Bo, I think, handled this well, and that he gave an update and was clear with fans on what happened. He tweeted out yesterday, I believe, the update was they had they issued to a secondary encoder that had to do with putting the games online so that it would stream. I believe the encoder has something to do with just making sure that everything streams properly. They said they won't be using it again this season. I'm not sure exactly what the nature of that issue is. If anyone wants to tweet at me or whatever, that's fine. But just the fact that he was forthright about what happened, I do appreciate. So thank you very much for that, Commissioner Bo. We are, do appreciate that kind of stuff here at BattleStations. Relax, enjoy the game this week. Heaven help us, I want to finally get a win. I would love to beat the Blackjacks. It would be great to finally get that first win. Go Destroyers. Thank you for listening to BattleStations.